When a man really loves a woman, he will do for her things that he would do for no other woman. And he will show up in ways that maybe sometimes will surprise himself. Because at the end of the day, he wants to make sure that this woman feels loved, feels protected, and feels like she can count on him. But there's also some things that that man will not allow you to do as the woman he loves. Now, before some of y'all react badly to the whole he won't let you do, like this isn't about him being your father and controlling you or your dictator or whatever, but it is about how he wants to ensure you stay in a place of happiness where you are protected, where you are loved, where you are poured into. All right. And as being your man, he understands that there's certain things that he has to guard you from, or at least assist in guarding you from, to ensure that the woman he loves is protected, essentially. Okay. So let's break down some of these things that a man who really loves you will not let you do. And a big one we got to talk about is he will not let you fight another woman over him. So I'm sure many of you have seen, heard, maybe watched on a TV show, scenarios where two women talking to the same guy and end up fighting each other over this man. And I have to say, it's unfortunate that even in situations where the women know this man has not been treating them right or isn't the man they need, they get so caught up in the competition of this other woman trying to take their man as they see it, that they're more concerned with beating this woman than the reality that this man is not best for them. But, or let me not even say but, and it blinds them from the fact that he's allowing this to occur. Let me make it clear. Ain't no man who truly loves a woman, and I don't want to say there's an exception to this rule. I will say that could I see a situation where a man who has not grown up in certain ways or has not matured in certain ways doesn't know how to step in and handle a situation, even though he doesn't want things to go this way, or doesn't know how to interject himself in this scenario to where it stops his woman from fighting some other woman? Yes, that's possible, right? That's possible. But then I would argue that that man needs some growth. That man needs to learn how to handle situations and how to ensure it doesn't even get that far. And I know some of you might say, well, if he even gotten that far, then clearly he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. Fair point. But I'm always trying to consider the exceptions, right? But for the most part, ain't no man who truly loves a woman gonna sit there and watch that woman fight someone else. And it's not even just fight in the sense of like bickering online or going back and forth on the phone. I remember there was a situation where a woman was, I think she was married to the man, but they were separated. Okay. So he wanted a divorce. They were separated, living separately. And he then started entertaining some other woman. Okay. And I believe in this situation, the other woman knew of the wife. They knew each other. Okay. So I know some of y'all feel like, well, that's the reason why some women will fight, is because it's a personal disrespect, not simply, oh, you're trying to take my man. Understood. But let me continue. So one day she ends up popping up to the house while the woman is there and she's with the husband. And again, they're separated, and it becomes this huge fight. And long story short, she ends up getting thrown in jail. Okay. Now, granted, that probably wasn't the best example to use because they were separated. However, the reason why I used that story, because I was trying to make the point that if he was truly into his technical wife, the woman he was still married to, and still madly in love with her, to watch her get into that altercation and allow her to be the one to be taken to jail, like, No, it wouldn't have gone down like that. And the fact that he did allow it to go down like that was more proof than anything that this man was mentally, emotionally checked out and moved on to someone else. And unfortunately, this woman had to pay the price of going to court and dealing with all this mess because she got caught up in the fight of it all. But that's not, again, what a man who cares about a woman is going to allow her to do. He's going to understand, one, he's not going to allow it to get that far. Okay? He's going to nip things in the butt. Now, listen, the reason why I mentioned, one of the reasons why I mentioned an exception here is because have I seen scenarios where, let's just say, a man's with a woman, they're in a relationship, and there's a woman from his past or a coworker who likes him, and even though he's done his part to make sure that she understands, ain't nothing going down with us, I'm in a relationship, I don't want no part of this, the woman, being jealous, wanting to be messy, finds ways to wreak havoc anyway. And that's why sometimes it's not about what he was supposed to do to stop this. Some women going above and beyond to cause problems, okay? And so if that's the case, then that's different. However, even then, he's not going to want his woman to have to now put herself in any kind of harm's way in order to, win him over or protect him in any kind of way. He's going to want to protect her. And so bottom line is when a man allows that, that's a problem. And the right man will not allow that. And I think this is kind of hitting my spirit because sometimes the fighting the other woman is not another romantic interest. It's his mother. If y'all have watched some of my videos, I've mentioned this a lot where I've seen a lot of scenarios where it becomes a battle between the man's mother and his wife or his girlfriend or whatever. And I just mentioned on the show the other day how you have some scenarios where the mothers have essentially made their sons their pretend boyfriend, pretend husband in a way. And this is why they take such issue with any woman coming into her son's life, because you're taking her man away. All right. And she becomes that woman that starts to wreak havoc and cause problems. Now, we have to acknowledge that this is a more difficult situation for a lot of men to handle. And I think this is probably a greater example of you could have a man who truly loves you and, of course, does not want you to be bickering and going back and forth with his mother or his mom coming at you, but doesn't know how to handle it because he loves his mom, has a good relationship with his mom, but has never learned how to stand up to his mom, has never learned how to set boundaries with his mom, and doesn't understand that he must make his wife, and specifically, I'm saying his wife, not just his girlfriend, but his wife, number one. At least that is my belief. I believe that the wife should come first. It doesn't mean neglect the mother, throw her away to the side. It just means she has to understand her new place in his life now that he has his woman, right? But there's a lot of guys who don't know how to handle that. And I wouldn't want to say that their lack of being able to handle it means he does not love you, okay? But it is a scenario we have to be mindful of. And I will say, just like I tell you, don't get caught up with fighting some other woman who has a romantic interest in your man. I wouldn't want you fighting his mother either. And I think it's something that he still needs to learn how to step in and handle things and either bring about peace or finding some kind of resolution or creating some kind of structure where we eliminate or at least diminish severely the conflict that's been going on. But bottom line, to get back to the original point, a man who loves you is not trying to let you fight some other woman over him and is not trying to put you in a position where you even have to think about it. All right, so now let's keep it going with another thing a man will not let you do if he really loves you, and that's let you struggle when he's able to help you. All right? Key thing there, he's able. So, I can't hold a man who is not in a position to assist you to the standard of assisting you in a time that you're struggling. If he just flat out can't, He can't. Now, we could argue, why are we even in a relationship if we don't have stability? But sometimes you enter it stable, things happen, and now you're not in a position where you can do much. I know a guy I spoke to recently who got laid off, and he's been struggling with that feeling of inadequacy and not understanding how he can show up for his partner as a man. But I encouraged him, and I encourage any man, that even when you're not able to financially assist, right? Find other ways to be useful. Find other ways to be an asset to your partner. There are other ways to, quote unquote, provide even when you cannot financially. But let's focus for a second on the financial, and let's focus on the man is in the position to handle it. So one thing about me, I'm not a big fan of 50-50. I'm not a fan at all of 50-50, right? The whole split in the bills. I understand there's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of, context we have to add to the discussion. But in general, not a fan. And I've said many times before, if a man is fully capable of providing for a woman, providing for you, and he's instead asking for 50-50, he's not in love. All right? Something is off there. And I say that because when a man has the means to do it, one, men in general, when they are in love, they want to provide, they want to pour into their woman. Again, they want to make sure you're good, you ain't got nothing to worry about. So for him to be fully able, but still asking you to go 50-50, says to me something's not right here, and that's not the actions of a man typically who is deeply in love with a woman. Plain and simple. All right? But beyond just even asking about 50-50 is, I've seen situations where I remember one woman told me she was with a man, and literally, I think he was making, let's say, $120,000 a year. She had a job making like $40,000 a year. And I think in this scenario, they were even living together. And he still was asking her, not only was he asking her to pay her half of the rent, and to me, that's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of 50-50, is because that's not real 50-50 to me. 50-50, if we're going to really do it, is a certain percentage of his income and the same percentage of her income. That way it's the same level of sacrifice. Not, okay, the rent or mortgage is $1,000. We're both paying $500, but $500 out of her money is a way bigger sacrifice than $500 out of his money. But anyways, we're not going to get too deep into that. Anyways, he's asking for half, and then she had a situation with her car that she was struggling with. And this man did not offer or nothing to help her out. It was like, all right, well, go talk to your parents, or I hope you go figure this out, or, maybe just got to catch the bus for a while. I'm not exaggerating. Forgive me for laughing, but like that, I'm laughing at how ridiculous it was for that man to like hit her with that. Like that's crazy to me. But it was clear evidence he was not in love. He was not truly into this woman. You can't convince me otherwise. All right. And so I see a lot of women who entertain men who allow them to struggle when they're able to help, and still try to rationalize like, oh, well, no, it's only fair, or, he has things he has to do. I get it. Everybody got their responsibilities, but no, if he's capable and he loves, there is a natural inclination to, listen, forget even capable. There are some men who may not even be fully in a position to help, but because they're so in love with their woman, they will try everything in their power to find a way to make it happen. Plain and simple. So the fact that he's not even trying when he can, that's a problem. So, and so I want to stress here, because some people hear this stuff and it's all about money. It's not all about money. It's about the mindset. All right. It's about the character. The money is the surface issue here. But when we go deeper, it's the mindset of, I can watch you struggle and not do anything about it. No. So to me, it's something that you have to be aware of, but it's something that, again, the man who loves you is going to find ways to improve that and make that work. But this kind of hit my spirit too, so I got to say this. And I'm not using this as a scapegoat for the man who does not assist. But I have seen situations where a man has been very helpful to his woman, has looked out, has made sure he's provided for her, and she has been extremely ungrateful. And it is very natural for people who feel underappreciated to at some point stop. All right. I always say appreciation breeds production. And so some women may have this mentality of, well, you're my man, so you're supposed to do that. And I think that's such an unhealthy mindset to have, because that's what doesn't allow you to show and express appreciation, which then makes him feel like he's being taken advantage of, he's being taken for granted. And there may come times where even though you know he's capable, he's coming up with excuses as to why he can't assist you now. Because he's really just tired of being used. Okay? And one could argue, how much do you love him if you're not showing any level of appreciation and gratefulness for this man? Now, again, I'm not going to say it's automatically that's the issue. I think there's a lot of layers to it, but that can creep into the mind of that man and to the people he's talking to, like, man, I think this woman is just trying to use you. So understand that there's always two sides, and everybody has to do their part. So the man who loves you is not going to let you struggle, but the woman who loves him should be willing to show and express appreciation. Oh, and one more thing before we move on to the next point. So also be mindful of this phenomenon, this dynamic, where you could have a relationship where the man has initially in the beginning offered to help, offered to take care of things, make sure you're good. And as a woman, you're so accustomed to being independent, you're always like, nah, I'm good, I can take care of it, you're fine, boom, boom, boom. And you've conditioned him to feeling like you don't need his help or you don't want his help. And so now he stops offering. Not because he's unwilling, not because he's unable, because you led him to believe that it's either not necessary, not desired, not welcomed. All right? So you as a woman, I talk about this in other videos where you have to make sure. I know many of you struggle with asking for help, but you got to at least be able to receive it when it's offered. It's specifically when it's coming from your man. Allow him to do for you. Because that's him expressing love. That's him trying to pour into you. Real quick example, because I had to learn this myself, because I believe this is true for just human beings in general. I'm just keeping it real with y'all about how I am. I'm one of those very old-fashioned, I'm not letting a woman pay for dinner and all this type of stuff. I'm paying for everything. But I was so bad, and I say bad, you'll hear the story, to the point where there was a situation where I helped a woman out with something. I can't remember what it was. And as a thank you to me, she wanted to take me out to dinner, right? And I was so uncomfortable with the idea of a woman paying for dinner or whatever, even though this is her thank you for something I already helped her with, not financially, but otherwise, I refused to let her pay. And I still paid for it. But I came to realize over time that doing that is blocking that person's ability to express and show love and appreciation. It's almost taking away their moment. Okay? And it's not necessary for me to do that. Like, there's no reason for me to be like, oh no, like, let them, when someone offers something to me and I know that it's in their heart that they genuinely want to do, I let them. It's not because I need it. Did I need her to pay for it? No, of course not. But I know how much that would mean to her to be able to say she was able to do that for me in return. So I've learned to change my mindset with that and allow myself to receive. So the same way I want to encourage you, you have to learn how to allow yourself to receive. And the amazing thing is when you do, you start to notice more comes your way. All right. So let's keep this thing going. Another thing a man will not let you do if he loves you is allow you to go to dangerous places alone. All right. And I'm going to add as a bonus to this one, letting you walk out the house looking all kinds of crazy. Now, all kinds of crazy. Let's put a pin in that for a second. Let's start with going to the dangerous places. All right. Men who love you are going to be protective, not possessive. However, I think sometimes those lines can get a little blurred. Okay. Possessive to me is trying to control somebody. And It's to the point where you'll have a guy who will try to block a woman from seeing her friends and family, stopping, watching everywhere she goes, tracking her. Like it's overboard, and it goes to a very unhealthy place. Protective is more so, I'm trying to keep you out of harm's way. I'm trying to make sure you're safe. And sometimes that may come across as if I'm trying to control you, but I'm not trying to control you. But I understand certain environments are not going to be safe for you to be at, or at least be at alone. So an example I've given before with myself is like, let's say I'm in a relationship, it's 2:00 in the morning, and my woman is like, yo, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go to the corner store to get something. Ain't no way in hell I'm letting you go to the corner store at 2:00 in the morning by yourself. Now listen, there's tons of women who've done it and come back home in one piece and everything's fine. Of course, right? But to me, if I see that as just too risky and dangerous to allow, no, I'm not letting you do that. We either gonna, call a delivery system, or I'll go do it. But I'm not gonna let you go to a place that I feel like isn't safe. Now that's just one small example, but it could be tons of examples. And men, you have to understand, they may be viewing certain environments differently than you. So you'll have situations where the woman feels like, oh, you're being overprotective, or you're doing too much, you're overthinking it. And it's like, no, to him, it's you're underthinking it. You're not considering certain things. And it's like, yes, you may be able to go and be okay, but the problem is if something happens to you, he's going to feel responsible, or he's going to have to step in a way that now things have escalated and it's a much worse situation. So we have to understand that as a man, protection is a big part of what he feels his role is in your life. And he's going to take that very seriously when he loves you. And he does not want anything to happen to you. Like, God forbid, you know what I'm saying? So he is going to be mindful. I think that as couples, you have to have these discussions, and I think have these discussions in advance. And because we don't want it to turn into an argument or a battle when those moments come, because we haven't had a sit down understanding of how we view things, how we go about things, how we agree to handle maybe even a disagreement like that. Like, you may have a situation where you really feel like, no, there's nothing wrong with me going here by myself. And he's like, no. And we need to know, how do we handle those moments where we feel strongly about our positions and we disagree? And how do we find a resolution to this? But then taking it a step further, the not letting you walk out the house looking all crazy. Now, I was a little hesitant to put this on the list because I know this is another one that can get tricky. Because when I said looking crazy, there's a couple ways to view that. One way is, have you walking out dressed in a way that's going to invite a lot of negative attention. Okay? Now, again, I'm someone who has acknowledged in the past, and I'll acknowledge it now. I'm a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not as conservative in this regard when it comes to what my woman is wearing, right? I kind of like my woman wearing sexy things sometimes, so I'm not going to stress it. But I do still understand there's times and places for everything, right? And so I still would be taking into account, where are you going? Who are you with when you're dressed this way? Things of that nature, and what that might lead to. Some other men are even bigger sticklers on that. And I think this is a tricky thing because, again, this is one of those situations where you have to have these discussions in advance, because I've seen it lead to huge fights, huge conflicts, and then it literally be the beginning of the end of that relationship. Because a disagreement there, let's paint the picture. Let's say the man's woman wants to go to, her friends are having some party. She wants to go out. They're going out to, I don't know, a lounge. She never really goes out, just one time, but she's wearing something that's super duper sexy, right? And he's like, oh, hell no, you ain't walking out the house like that. We're not having it. And she's like, you ain't gonna tell me what I can wear. What do you mean? And they've never had this discussion. They never had this conflict before. And let's say it leads to her still leaving wearing what she was wearing. And now he feels like you don't respect me. You don't respect my feelings. You don't respect me as leader in this relationship. So now that creates its own conflict, right? And I always say when a man feels like he's been undermined in that way, he may try to reassert himself, but in a horrible moment. Basically try to regain his manhood or regain him being the leader or whatever. And then that creates more conflict, right? And then now she feels like this man's trying to control me, and it just snowballs from there. And so that's why it's so important that we are on the same page as early as possible about things like this. Now, other people can view going out the house looking crazy as in just looking a hot mess. Like you represent us. You can't be looking you can't be looking like that walking out this house, okay? And again, you have these situations where there's a disconnect because she may view it as no big deal, and to him it's like, no. Yeah, fix your hair up at least, throw something better on. Like, make sure you're going out there looking decent, okay? And shoot, it can happen vice versa as well. But the point is, there's definitely going to be that dynamic in many cases with a man who loves you. And you may have some situations where the man completely doesn't care. Not because he doesn't care about you, he just doesn't put much weight in things like that. That's just not a big deal to him. To him, it's like, yo, you're allowed to live freely and do what you want to do, however, and it doesn't bother me at all. But I think no matter what level he's on with it, you want to have a discussion in advance and you want to have an understanding so that we eliminate any kind of conflict down the road. All right. Now, before I give you a couple more to go, real quick, be sure to go to my shop, StephanSpeakShop.com, and use code YouTube20 to get 20% off any product on there. Books, one-on-one coaching sessions, a membership group, all of it will be found on my shop. Take advantage. Go to StephanSpeakShop.com or click the link in the description or in the comment section. So now, another thing a man will not let you do when he loves you is allow you to constantly beat yourself up. Okay? So, the man who loves you wants to encourage you, wants to uplift you, wants you to feel good about yourself, which I have to say, like, anytime you see a situation where a man is taking shots at his woman in a way to lower her self-esteem and undermine her confidence, and he's intentionally, blatantly doing it, not like he's just unaware, making a joke and didn't realize, but he's constantly, blatantly doing that, that's not a man who loves the woman, all right? Because when he does, it's the opposite. He wants to uplift. He wants you to feel good. He wants you to be confident, right? And so it's natural in life that we have moments where things don't go the way that we want them to. We make mistakes and we beat ourselves up. And that man is going to try to pull you out of that. Now, the unfortunate thing that happens sometimes is, as a woman, you may have moments where even though you're beating yourself up, you're really just venting, right? And you just want to let off some steam. And you may find yourself annoyed by his attempt to pull you out of that or to find ways to correct the situation where it's like, no, I just want you to listen. I just want you to let me talk. And then once I get this all out, then we can talk the good stuff and build myself back up, right? And so I keep saying it. I sound like a broken record, but it is what it is. This is why we need to talk about these things in advance before they happen. Because there's a lot of men who find themselves frustrated because they felt that their attempt to pour positivity into you or their attempt to fix whatever was wrong was not welcomed, was not appreciated, was not respected. Okay? And then eventually they get to a point where they just let you do what you do. So now they start looking like the guy who doesn't love you because they're not trying to encourage you and uplift you. But in reality, They're just not doing it because they feel like it never works anyway, or it's never received correctly. So they're like, what's the point? I'm just going to let her go through her motions and then she'll be fine tomorrow, hopefully. Okay. So you want to make sure you establish that. And I think what's good to establish is some kind of keyword or just flat out saying, starting it with, I just need to vent. So then he knows, okay, this is just listening time. This is just sit here, maybe just hold you, cuddle with you, and let you just let off the steam. Okay. Versus if it's something that you actually want solutions and all these things to, then maybe using a different word like, okay, in this situation, I need your help. So now his natural inclination to want to fix and correct is going to be activated, and boom. And you guys can be on the same page rather than conflicting in these moments. But ultimately, he doesn't want you to be beating yourself up. He doesn't want you to be down and depressed. He wants to help uplift you, but you've got to be willing to walk with him on that journey to better. I also want to say this before I move on to the next point, because sometimes our struggle in getting out of that funk and that bad mindset and those negative places, it can't be solved on the surface, because the deeper issue could be something as, I don't want to say as simple, but something as common as deficiencies, right? When I say deficiencies, vitamin D deficiency comes to mind. So for a lot of people, they're deficient in vitamin D. That could lead to higher rates of depression, low energy, lack of focus. And so all those things point into, when you have a bad moment, staying and dwelling in that bad moment. All right. But if you were healthier from within, it'd be easier. And sometimes we're like, because this is good information for you if you're dealing with a man who has the same issues and problems at times. It can be frustrating trying to pull this person out of this bad place and into a better place, and nothing seems to be working, but it's because what needs to be corrected is a health thing. So it could be vitamin D, it could be a lot of other things, but I just wanted to throw that out there to you as something to be mindful of and to consider to help with those types of issues in a relationship. All right, and last but not least, another thing a man will not let you do, and please let me break it down. He will not let you do, if he loves you, is go to sleep angry. Now, this is also another, you got to consider some things here. I always feel that initially, and always pay attention to how a man initially treats you, because to me, that is when he is at his most energetic in trying to do everything he's supposed to do. And then from there, we have to consider why things might fall off or go left. But initially, a man, kind of going back to the whole, men want to fix things, right? They want things to be fixed. So when you guys are angry at each other and there's a disconnect, and he really cares and loves about you, that bothers him because he doesn't want the woman he loves feeling this way about him. So he's going to try hard to want to work things out. But if you are insistent on not wanting to address things right now, or not ready to have this conversation, then again, it gets to a point where there's only so much he can do. And sometimes you condition him to feeling like going to sleep angry is acceptable, or what he needs to respect that you feel like doing, because you have your own time frame to when you want to address things. Now, I know some of y'all are thinking it ain't me, it's him. He's the one that don't want to address things. I hear you. I'm just giving you the perspective of the man who genuinely loves you, and that man is trying to work things out as quickly as possible. He doesn't want things dragging on. So he will make an attempt. He will try. But again, you have to be willing to join him on that journey. But I also think that this is another situation where if we need to discuss it in advance and create the structure into which we handle things like this. So basically, do we have the agreement on both sides? We don't go to sleep angry at each other. Some people have that. Do we have an agreement of, okay, if we're angry, we give each other 24 hours to go to our corners and then we have to talk about it? You know, or this is how we're going to handle it. Or if we're angry, we write letters to each other because that's a better, more effective way for us to communicate. And then we have a conversation. Whatever it is, let's create the structure so that we have something to hold ourselves accountable to that's going to create the most harmony and create the most efficiency in ensuring that we resolve things the best way possible and allow ourselves to experience healthier and happier relationships. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 7 common concerns men have about women. That might have been the case. But in many instances, no, he's being genuine because he has his own perception and belief of what he needs to be able to provide financially.